Hello, this is Chip Byers, and welcome back. I'm your instructor for ANI 150, and we are now on part 2 of our table and chairs. We've got our table. Congratulations, great job. If it looks a little different than mine, that's okay. No worries there. The idea then is just to kind of get you comfortable rotating around in your scene, going back and forth from orthographic top view, front view, and side view, using the space bar. Scaling and moving vertices around when we created the table legs. Again, this is just all experimentation for you. If it looks a little different, that's okay. No worries there. Now we're going to work on the chair. Again, you won't have my scene that I have with my reference. You're just going to be following along with me. That's okay. I'm not going to give you this scene because it has everything finished. Don't want to do that. I want you to work for this. So again, we're going to create another cube because everything we see here, and I'm just kind of reiterate things that I'm going to talk about in class, is that everything's broken up into smaller pieces. Everything that we touch, it's not an exaggeration. If you look at your mouse, it's several parts put together, screwed together or glued together. That makes the mouse that we're using for our computer right now. Our keyboard is several different parts, many parts. The keys by themselves are all separate. If you look underneath your keyboard, we probably see screws in there holding it together. You got the top and the bottom piece that connect together, and all the various parts and stuff inside, which we never see. So you would never model something like that. That's the inside, unless you know that a client will want something that opens up and shows the insides of something. We're going to keep it very simple. So these pieces we need to model them separately as well. Okay. Even though if I were to build this table, I would have the legs and I'd have to screw them onto the tabletop. So the chair's the same way. It looks complicated, but it's really not. And I think that throws people for a spin, I think. So I'm going to select the table that we created so it's not going to get in the way. And you probably should do the same. So just kind of zoom out a little bit with your middle mouse wheel, and just marquee select, holding down the left mouse button, just kind of drag across your object. You're going to have to practice that too. You can see that I've gotten pretty fast at selecting things by the dragging tool. And I'm going to drag everything, and I'm going to click on this display. If you don't see this, you can hit the do Control A. This goes between the attributes of that object, and then if you hit Control A again, you can get back to your channel. Now, you won't see anything in that channel editor if you don't have something selected. Now I'm going to marquee select this. Okay, this is your layer editor, and if I marquee select everything with the table, I can click on this guy right here. It looks like a piece of paper with a ball on top of it. That's basically telling me that, yeah, I can create a layer and put the object into that layer. So if I click on that, you can see it creates a new layer called layer 1. If I double click on that layer 1, the word, if I double click on it, it opens up the edit layer, and I can rename it to something like table. Okay, and I'm going to put like ORG, which is original. Okay, so I'm going to click save. Notice I have a underscore. I use underscores because if I have a space, it will cause an error. Okay, you can't have spaces, so an underscore will work. Underscore. So I'm click on save, or no spaces at all. If you don't want to put an underscore, just no spaces at all will be good. Okay. Now I can turn that table on and off. Okay. And you can see the V means visible. If I turn that V off, I click on it, it will turn off, and that way I can just have empty space here. Okay. All right. So it's okay if you're not sure where you should put your chair. Turn your table back on, and just make sure you're in wireframe, which is 4. Usually your orthographics should be in wireframe, which is 4. 5 is smooth shade. 4 is wireframe. That way you can see through the object, and if you have multiple objects, you can see where they're at. So I'm going to click on another cube to get started. I'm going to move that cube, okay, just in that general area here, okay. And I want you to kind of get in between, in the middle of this cube. Now, if I turn this off, you can see that I may even want to go over a couple, 1, 2 grids, and then I'm going to kind of scale that up. Not quite the size of 2 grids. That would be 2 feet by 2 feet. So we want to make that a little bit smaller. Okay, just a smidgen. All right. And I can just move it back just a little bit. Again, this is not important that it's perfect. Okay. All right. What's important is that you know how to move and manipulate objects. Okay, so I'm going to go to the side view here, or the front view. So I'm going to move that up. Okay, and I'm going to do something different. I could go in here to scale. If that's more comfortable for you, go ahead. But what I'm going to suggest that you do, I'm going to do a Control Z. I am going to use the vertices. So I'm going to click on the object, go to Vertex. I'm going to marquee select the vertices down at the bottom, hit the W key, and move them up. Okay? And I do a lot of this where I'm manipulating, marquee selecting, and manipulating and moving these vertices around. You're going to do a lot of that when you're working with modeling. Okay? So if I go into perspective, I can get close to this. I can hit the F key again. Now, F key, when you have points selected, it will actually focus on those points, which is kind of cool. Okay? If you want it to focus on the object, you'll have to right click over it and go to selection mode. If it still doesn't select and it's green, then go up here to the top under the main menu bar right here, and you can see if I hover over this is called component mode. Well, component mode is vertex, edge, or face. Now you've learned that in the other videos. Okay? So if I click on vertices, it shows vertices, and I can select them. Marquee select, or just click on them. I can go to edge mode and click on the edges if I want to. I can actually move these edges too and create different shapes. I can go to face mode, okay? And you can click on the face and you can move that, which is kind of cool. So there's lots of cool things you can do when you're modeling, okay? All right. So we've got just the basic cube. All right, looks good. So we're going to get the rest of these cubes. So it's basically a chair is made out of cubes. Okay, well, this chair is. And so we're just going to continue creating cubes and scaling them and sizing them to fit. Okay, there's no rhyme or reason, just the fact that we're just going to build something from scratch. And it's going to look like a chair. So I'm going to go to the cube, and again we're going to just make it smaller, and let's just say I just take this away, and now that we've got our scale set, there's not much more I need to do. I'm just going to go in here and just kind of move that around like that and bring it over here. Okay, so and just like the table, I'm going to want to make sure that cube is right up, that's touching the ground on the bottom. The cube bottom is touching the floor. Okay. And I could go into scale and scale it up, but I just choose to do the vertex. Okay, I'm going to hit the Q key. Okay, I'm going to right click and go to vertex. I'm going to marquee select the top of the vertices and just go and move it up like that. Great. Okay, now I'm going to look at my chair and take it out of template mode and just kind of see where we're at as far as thickness and if it's skewed in or anything like that. And again, we're good with that, and if I need to scale it, I will. So yeah, I need to scale a little bit. I'm going to turn that back on to template. Okay, and I'm just going to scale that down. I'm going to go into object mode, which is right click over the object and go to select, and I'm going to hit the R key and scale that in a little bit, and then move this around like that. Scale a little bit more. Okay, like that. All right, so when I get one done, I'm going to go ahead and you guessed it. I'm going to hit the W key and I'm going to go to Shift D for duplicate. Okay. Now, this piece right here in the back is a little bit wider than the ones in the front. Okay. That's just the style of the chair. Okay. So I'm going to click on one of these. I'm going to duplicate it, Shift D, and move it over to the back. You can see how the modeling process starts to get a lot faster now because we're not creating things from scratch. So there's a couple things I could do here. I could put it in the middle and hit the R key and scale that down. Okay, like that. Okay, and you can see that from the top view, I need to scale that out just a little bit more like that. Okay. Again, you don't have the same reference that I have, but you're just kind of following along with me. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. All right. So I'm going to do Shift D on that, hit the W key. Whoopsie, something happened there. Not sure what. Click on that and Shift D and move it over like that. There we go. Great. All right, the next one we're going to do is pretty simple. I'm going to click on this guy right here, Shift D, and then move that up. Okay, and I'm just going to move it just so it's just above the bottom part here, like that. Do the same thing with this one, Shift D, move that up. There we go. And then the rest of it, again, I'm going to go to the, looks like the side view here. And I'm just going to make this a tall back. I'm just going to pull that up like that. Again, you don't have references like I have. Maybe I'll have some in for you, and we'll do that in class. But this is what I got so far. Okay. And if yours, just kind of get it close to maybe what I have. Turn that off. Here we go. There we go. And then it looks like we're going to do the back of the chair and some support bars across like that. And then the bottom part. So again, we're just going to use cubes. Okay. Pull the cube close to the chair. Okay. And then we're just going to scale this down. And I'm in the front view now, and I'm going to move it over to where I think that in the middle of this board right here. Again, I'm going to turn that off. Okay, and I'm going to make that quite a bit smaller. So I'm going to scale that down. Okay, hit the R key, scale it down to be just a little bit smaller, and then squish it flat. Okay. I'm going to turn that chair back on just so I can see what the thickness or the height of that should be. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to turn that back off again. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go to the top view of the chair, and then you can see that's quite a ways away. I'm going to move that over to the first piece I have there, and I am going to right click over it and go to vertex mode and marquee select that side and move it all the way across like that. Okay, so you can see that I've got it going across the entire back of it. And I went to selection mode, and now I'm going to do Control D and just Control D that up. Control D, and just kind of space them out evenly. Okay, you can use your grid to help with that if you want to kind of space them out. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, it just needs to be, just look good. Control D and then move that up. This will be our last one. I'm going to right click over this in vertex mode, and I'm going to go to the side view and just marquee select the bottom ones hit the W key and move it down. Great. Now we look at it. It's looking pretty good so far. There we go. Now, one thing I haven't noticed or haven't talked about is that it looks like mine's kind of got a shadow on it, and I forgot to tell you guys to talk about this. This is kind of fake ambient occlusion, which makes us feel like there's a shadow in there and helps us see the model better. So what we want to do to see that in your viewport and perspective, go to Renderer and go to Viewport 2 and click on the little box, and then scroll down to where it says Screen Space Ambient Occlusion. Click on that and turn it on, and you can put in the numbers I have here, which is 1.091 and radius of 4 and filter radius of 32 and samples at 16. Okay? And that should give you something like what I have here if you're at the same scale, which you should be, but if you're not, you can mess around with this and get it to where you want it to look. All right, so go ahead and close that when you're done. Now we're going to make all the pieces that go across. Okay, what we can do, which is really nice, is we can take these bars that we've already created and duplicate them. Shift D, move it down like that. And again, move that up. And we're going to make that a little bit thicker, like a little bit wider. So I'm going to hit the R key and just kind of scale that up a little bit like that. Okay. All right. Looks good so far. And again, I'm going to take that off. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the W key, and I'm going to go to Shift D. Okay. Now notice that we got some bizarre things happening here. Control Z. You can also do Control D. Okay. Shift D. What that does is if I create something and then move it over, like if I want to create a fence or something like that, let's just take this leg. Okay. Let's say if I do a Shift D and move it over this way, and I do a Shift D or just hit Shift D again, it will replicate that exactly spaced apart, and it'd be great for making a fence. So I'm going to go Control Z back. Just Control Z back. There we go. Make sure there's nothing behind there. Here we go. That's very important. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to click on that and hit the Control D, which does just duplicate once. Okay. And you can see that's looking really good, except it's not really going across. Okay. Because these legs are skinnier than the ones in the back. So all I'm going to do is, because that's centered, not centered in the middle of that, I'm going to have to make sure that's centered, because otherwise if I hit the scale, it will kind of scale in a weird manner. Okay. Instead of scaling across in both equally. So I'm going to go make sure you're in polymodeling up here in the shelf, and click on this guy right here. That's called Center Pivot. Okay, it's that guy right there. You can also go to Modify Center Pivot. Okay, now I can scale that non-uniformly into this other piece here, like that. Now we got one last thing to do. Let's Control D, and we're going to move that up. We're also going to rotate this. So I'm going to hit the E key and then rotate it with the green kind of circular area here, and just rotate it around. Now if I rotate just a little bit, you can see it rotating here and rotate Y. If I just click on that, highlight that, and type in 90 and hit Enter, it'll perfectly align that so it's aligned up perfectly in 90 degrees, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go in here to one of the perspective views. Okay, this is the side view. I hit the W key and just move it over so it's in between those two pieces, like that. And, you know, get it kind of in the middle there between here and here. That'll be a nice spacing. Then I'm going to do Control D, not Shift D, Control D. And that just duplicates. The other one's kind of like duplicate special. And then we have the problem that these are not lined up. So I'm going to select them both. That's Marquee selecting them. That selects them both. Okay. And we'll move them both together, back together. Okay. Don't worry if they intersect a little bit. That's okay. There you go. So basically your chair is done. We've got some more things to do to it, but congratulations, you did your chair. It's not completely finished because we want to kind of make it a little more round there. Let me take a look at the original chair. Okay, and so you want to do is you want to marquee select this, okay, and click on this ball and the piece of paper, and double click on that and call this chair ORG, original. Here we go. Save it. So we can turn that off and on as we want. So I'm going to go to my original chair to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be doing with this chair. We're going to make sections out of this. Oh, let's see. Oh, I need it visible. There we go. No, that's not it. Oh, turn off reference. That's good. And you can see I've got this rounded, and I'm going to, in the next video, I'm going to show you how to add that roundness to make it a little more organic looking. All right, I'll see you in the next video.